Hello, Amy Harris.
Hi.
I am excited to have this conversation with you. I I was struck by your work with mothers in a yoga class about caring for our bodies and minds and souls in various ways. And so I wanted to follow up with you and continue this conversation on care. And would love to hear, maybe you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can jump in.
Sure. I love it, Holly. It felt so good like when you saw me, like just being seen by you felt really special for you to go like, Amy, you have something that I'm interested in. And I was like, wow, you have something I'm interested in. Really happy to have this conversation with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have been a yoga teacher for 15 years now. And I am also a mother. My daughter's turning 8 next week. And one of the things I experienced in the transition into motherhood was like, oh, I have no idea what's going on. Like before I had my daughter, I thought I was like really aware of what things were. And then going through birth and labor, uh, I was like, yep, there's a whole realm that I don't know anything about. And so at the time, I was living in Boulder, Colorado, and another fitness instructor at a studio where I taught had something called the Bloom method, which was basically a specific way of working with your core to heal, to train for to keep your core healthy in pregnancy, to train for labor, and then to heal after labor and pregnancy. And so I trained with her. I was her first coach, like first other person she taught this to, and she, and that has become a whole app. So I'm the yoga teacher on the app, and I work with the core. And basically from what I have learned through this process is that a lot of women want to heal their core to get their bodies back. And what I find is that like in our bodies is this vast wisdom, and what's going on in our abdomen, what's going on in our pelvis is so deep, and there's so much wisdom and there's so much power there. And that's really what I try to infuse into the fitness classes I teach and into the yoga classes I teach, not just to mothers, but to anyone. I mean, all of us have pelvises and all of us have cores. And this Bloom method and this working with mothers gave me a doorway to understanding it in a deeper way. And so I think that's probably what you noticed was just I had a different language and a different way of approaching not just let's get a six pack and but like really, can we build the willingness and the capacity to be with these parts of ourselves, which are often uncomfortable and often a little confusing. They don't always make sense. They don't always go the way we want them to. And really building the strength and the willingness to just feel the mystery of having digestive organs and reproductive organs and what they can do.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that work in the world. My my life's mission has become supporting mothers. So everything that you say resonates with me, and you know, I'm hearing like self-awareness, self listening to self, which is part of self-awareness, empowering self, accepting self. All of these things are huge. So thank you for doing your work. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also have been on a journey as a mother and teacher, and have also, it was a whole new world for me. And I realized once I had kids that actually, when I got pregnant was when it really began to occur to me, that I was in for a huge journey, ride, learning curve. So, in talking about caring for the self, that's one of the things I talk about with parents and myself a lot, and women in general. But we picked up this conversation last week, and you had a really interesting sort of broader take, or so I wanted to have that conversation with you about not just caring for the self, but as part of that, caring for the community around us. So could you just share a little bit about that? Then maybe we can go into maybe some ideas on how we might do that as we
Yeah.
approach these next couple of months, summer, when maybe during the school year, families might have certain structures in place that create care and community and continuity. But in the summer, it could be a whole different ballgame with school out. Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah. I think, one of the edges with community care, okay, first of all, community care, I think is, something emerging. I think in general, I don't think it's like self-care is really a hot topic right now, and I think some people are starting to go, but like, what about community care? So I think it's an emerging thing. And my own experience with what community care is a mystery. Like, I think I'm really just like, I think we all need that, and we need it because it doesn't exist really, and so we have to sort of be willing to create it. Now, one of the things about being in the newer phases of parenting or being a new mother, a new father, is that like it can be pretty overwhelming. And so for me to be like, and also you have to like shovel your neighbor's yard, like that's not that's not what this is. This is more about like um a willingness to experience uh ourselves as community members, and not just relate to ourselves as an isolated unit, which is how our culture likes us to live, is like, this is me and my house and my yard and my kids, and you're my neighbor and you're over there. And in some places it's easier. Some places have a little more community, or there might be, churches or schools or whatever where people sort of orient. And then there's some places like that are less community oriented, or what they mean by community is like you show up to yoga class once in a while, right? And so for me, community care is both something like I'm deeply craving, and also something that I don't know how to make. And at the same time, community care isn't something one person makes. It's like a web that gets tapped into, and multiple people kind of have to weave it together. So, when you and I were talking, you were sort of you were sharing that you were laughing with a friend, like, just me and my fridge and you and your fridge. And
right.
like, that's really a thing that happens for new moms, is they have to be home a lot because there's laundry and there's baby's naps and all these things. And so there's a very isolating, because you need your home space, but just literally down the street is another mama in the home space, but like, so I think what I'm coming to is just like this awareness of like that there is a community and there is possibility, and you probably aren't the only one who is aching for another mama by your fridge, or you to be by someone else, so um yeah, that's what I'll start there.
Yeah. So starting with an awareness that so many of us are doing the same thing, just in our little corners. Um, yeah, I really appreciate that. And I know in face-to-face conversations that I have with so many people, if I'm feeling isolated, lonely, overwhelmed, most of them are too. All it
Yeah.
takes is a little bit of honest sharing, and there's something that is relieved in the sharing. Yeah, so I really appreciate this. I guess I really appreciate opportunities to connect in community. Yeah, to weave the web.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. And I think too, like one of the things that I spin, like one of the places I love to spin out in, because I don't have a partner for, it's just me and my daughter most of the time. So I love to be like, it's all me and I'm by myself. And, that's true. And that's valid. And my feelings are real. And at the same time, I have gotten like really good at seeing my non-human community. So like the trees in my yard have become anchors for me into something bigger than myself. There's a small grove of aspen trees, and they're like my favorite trees, but they have this, we know aspen trees are all connected under the ground. And so there's a way where I'm like, right, like I have trees and there's a hummingbird feeder and there's we have a puppy now and there's grass growing. And like, I know that's not exactly what we're looking for, but there's a way we're leaning into the landscape and the nature and the land itself can, for me, gives me just enough courage to say, hey, I feel this to my other human moms, and I can't tell you how many times they'll be like, me too, right?
yeah,
And I love what you offer, Holly, is these moments, your groups where people can come and connect. And like, I'm so curious if anybody takes that further, like how do we keep weaving this into a community of care so that it's not just I see you on Tuesdays, but also like there's a deeper web being woven, because the children need that as they get older. I mean, I think if we look at what teens are going through in general, is that they're a lot lonelier than they were when maybe I was a teenager. And
yeah,
so thinking about not just how you're feeling as a new mom, but like now you have a person, and what is the web you want them to, what is the web you want to weave for them to be raised inside of?
yeah,
In the same way I tend to my garden and I water my trees, there's a way where just sending a message to your friend and saying, how'd the doctor go? You know,
yeah, yeah,
and do I'm going to the store. Can I drop some soup by your house on the way home? Or, that 10-minute extra thing
yeah,
could make all the difference in the weaving of the web. And it's so easy to just be like, I got to get home for nap time, which is valid. And maybe 10 minutes of dropping soup off could be something that weaves something in the future.
yeah. It's like, um, just planting lots of seeds, little seeds. And I love the way you said tending. How these little ways that we can tend, whether it's a little text or, I remember one thing I did, when I was just working a little bit outside of the home, but I was primarily focused at home with two young kids. And, I couldn't gather myself or find the resources to actually go anywhere and like pay for a program. Like that was just not in my reality. So it was a neighborhood thing. And we would meet at somebody's house once a week. And we just rotate, we'd hang out, we'd all bring our kids, we'd all bring food, and we would just be together. And I loved knowing that Tuesday mornings, I was going to be with, it was like 4 moms and a stay-at-home dad and all the little ones. So I think the tending, the little ways that we can tend with a text or something like that can maybe then get us through maybe a tough hour, a tough day. And what are the ways that we can tend in a consistent way so we can count on something, you know? Um,
Yeah. I love that. That's a great example. And it's so funny. I think a lot of because it's like been lost, at least my experience of mothering in this, having little ones through this time is like, we kind of lost the community. So you just saying like in my neighborhood, we rotated houses on Tuesdays. Like that is something that maybe didn't cross anyone's mind. And like also for me is being aware of like how many layers of vulnerability are there of like, oh no, someone's going to come in my house and oh, we're going to see each other's messy houses. We're going to like, that's part of motherhood that was really confronting for me, was like to have someone come into my home and see, oh, her laundry isn't always folded, and like that in itself, that vulnerability and that like, this is my life is community.
Yeah,
It's not the show we put on the Instagram or whatever,
right.
but that willingness to be with each other in the mess.
Yeah,
It's huge.
yeah. Willing to be with each other in the mess. That sounds like a bumper sticker. But um,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm also thinking about what community spaces are available where people can find each other. I know for my family, one space that we have come to again and again is the hot springs.
Mhm.
There are families there of all different ages and um, you know, but I'm thinking summertime, where can people find each other in simple, economical or free ways?
I love the playground.
Yeah.
You got to find in the summer, you have to know where the shady one is.
Yeah, shady playgrounds.
Yeah. And then from like, I don't like 10 to noon is usually a pretty good time. It's after breakfast, but before the nap and
Yeah.
lunch and not too hot out yet. We also really love, especially when my daughter was younger, we went to like baby groups at the library, story time at the library.
Yeah.
I also, I think it depends on the age of the kiddos, but the splash pads can be fun,
Mhm.
because they're free or like, and then the kid can run and be in the water and, you know,
Yeah. I haven't been to this pool lately in the Roaring Fork Valley, but I have heard from other mothers of young children that the basalt pool
Mm,
has a
pools.
nice temperature. Um, and it's inexpensive, it's just a community pool. It's not, $25 a head. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah, it's
um,
fairly affordable. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's great for littles. It's not too deep.
yeah,
It's playful. It's the right amount of stimulating.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And it's not just going there. It's like also being willing to like chat and open the doorway of communication. For me, that is often I'm naturally introverted. So
uh-huh,
there's a like commitment that I've had to make with myself to like say hello. How old is your child? How, you guys having a nice day,
right,
so willingness to open up.
yeah,
And if you are naturally extroverted, a willingness to kind of go towards the person who seems maybe shy,
yeah,
or someone maybe who's not speaking the same language as you and still saying
right,
hi,
right.
hola, bonjour, like, yeah.
Yeah, open up. That just makes me think, just going back to my example of creating like a little rotating play group, when I had little ones at home. I said they were in my neighborhood, but actually, um, reflecting back, these were people that like I might not necessarily would have been friends with before I had kids. Like we were just so it was a diverse group from different parts of the neighborhood, and we were all just desperate to be together. And the reason I'm saying that was that we were desperate for connection, and we became very like open with one another. in our dirty houses together, in the backyard where there might be dog poo in the corner, and
Yeah.
because we needed each other. But my point is, what you were just saying, I had to sort of open, like, a cast a wider net than I was used to, and it became, I just want to be with parents and caregivers who have children about the same age, and I don't have to get in a car to get there. Like, that was my criteria. Beyond that, like, I learned all sorts of things about these different interesting people. So I just like what you said about being willing to just have a conversation with somebody that might look a little different, or just not from like your background. So thank you for saying that.
That's huge. That's huge. And there's another layer that I felt really surprised by as a new mom was there was this like feeling almost like I was in high school again of like judgment. Like, because this might be different now, is that like, you know, if you're going to swaddle your child, there's 47 options for a swaddle. And the amount of pressure to choose the right swaddle or not choose the swaddle is like really intense. And so my experience was that there was this like massive amount of, it almost felt like Mean Girls. Like, I don't know if it was real or if it was just in my head, but I felt like, oh no, am I doing the right thing? Is that mom going to think I'm doing the wrong thing? And like, at the end of the day, every mom in that time is in the same overwhelm, just like all the teenage girls are in the hormonal ride, so it's a new phase of life. And like, the more willing you are to settle into the choices you're making and just trust, like, this is what I chose, and not worry so much about what she's doing, unless you have like an actual question, like, hey, I have a question.
Right.
It's not like, it's almost like the way that I like, you know, was afraid to ask my friends about like their menstrual periods, because like, it was a taboo. And there's sort of that same, I had to really work with myself with that same fear of asking questions. How is this going for you? Like, what did you choose? It felt like I had to like
Yeah.
posture a little bit. So I just want to name that, as that might be another barrier that you come up against in a social environment in these times.
Yeah. Thank you for naming that. Yeah. Maybe we could close here by just naming some of the key themes. I just, as you were talking, I was writing down a few words. Courage, courage to be vulnerable, courage to start a conversation with somebody different. Settle in, just settling into to what you're doing and your way of doing it. Trust, trust in self. Yeah, those are some of the last things I heard. Can you highlight any other big words?
Well, I think,
Tending,
yeah,
tending.
it's such a good word. It's a tend, the same way you tend a garden. It's not just like instantly there. It requires this. It feels like this to me. Like there's an in and an out at the same time.
Yeah,
It's not just like I gave, and it's not a tit for tat. We're not doing tit for tat. This is like a mysterious weaving,
yeah.
and I think to nature, leaning into.
Nature. Yeah. I love that. The non-human community. Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time looking at the apple tree in my front yard, and yeah, really making a connection with that tree. And I'm gathering strength from that tree. Thank you, apple tree. Amy, thank you so much for sharing, and just being willing to go deeper and name things that we women, mothers, parents go through. And thank you for your work in the world.
Yeah, Holly, thank you so much. Such an honor to be with you.
Yeah, and may you settle into yourself this summer in a loving way.
Yes, yes, indeed.